Hi gang, Scott here. In this video, we'll take a look at the black and white filter in ON1 Photo RAW. There's a lot in this filter. There's a lot of controls here to really craft a nice, rich black and white photo. Really quick, if you're thinking about adding Photo RAW to your toolkit, check the show notes. There's links there. Won't cost you anything extra, and it gives me a little support. There's also an offer code down there too, so it may actually save you a little bit of money. So black and white filter, it's in effect, it's really nice. There's a lot of different panels to it. So let's open it up here. Let's get it applied to this photo here. Add filter, black and white. So the filter's got what it normally has for all filters, some styles across the top. It has 4 sections: conversion, tone, toner, and film grain. And we'll get to each one of them, but really quick on the styles here: green, yellow, red. These are mimicking physical glass, actual filters we put on the front of a lens doing black and white work back in the day to say, let certain wavelengths pass through and other wavelengths of light not pass through, so you get a different look on your black and whites. I have to say, I rarely use these and jump right into the conversion area. There's 2 options. There's color response, which is the default, and you have channel mixer. The channel mixer is pretty limited. It's kind of old school, and there's a separate channel mixer filter, so I tend to never bother with it. I do color response and hit auto, and it got different controls here. There's some automatic processing happens, looks at the photo, figures out the tones, and you have the red, yellow, green, all these different channels. You can raise or lower the brightness. To give you an example, let me turn off the filter for a moment. And we have some red graffiti on the left-hand side of this, right? So putting black and white back on, when I play with the reds, if I brighten that, we'll see that graffiti almost fade away. In this case, I really want it to be nice and rich, so I'd pull that darkness way down, and now all that graffiti that was red painted is popping up. You can do that for each of the individual color channels, and also you've got this little eyedropper. We click that guy, and then somewhere in the scene, let's say on the floor of the train, if I click and drag left and right, what's moving? Okay, the blue slider is moving, so that's telling me this is mostly a bluish tone or hue going on there. And so now that I know that, when I do this, I'm seeing the floor get changed, and so on down the line. You can play with all the different sliders to your heart's content. In this one, I think I like red, and let's see, the other way you can do this is just push the slider around, see what happens in the scene. There's a lot of yellow bouncing around in there. I think I'll leave it where it was, quick undo. But that's how these different sliders work. You control the brightness of each of your major color channels. Now, once you've done this type of conversion, sometimes you need to make adjustments to the tone. Now, these sliders here, brightness, contrast, highlights, these are all the things we have in the develop module, and typically we would do our base touch-ups with brightness, contrast, black point, white point, all of that in develop. But as you're working in black and white and you make changes, or you think you need to make an adjustment based on what you've done with the conversion, you've got the controls right here, and you don't have to go to another module and bounce back. Like if I want those shadows to come back up a little bit, or I want the really deep blacks to be deep, in this case I'd like to have some detail. I like this black and white to be a bit of a punchier scene. This is a pretty dilapidated looking train car, so some extra details not bad, maybe even some extra contrast. So I have those controls right here, and I don't necessarily need to go jump to another filter. But these are mainly, I use these as let's say corrections or augmentations based on what's happened with the color response. So once you start working in black and white, you may start seeing things a little differently and want to go and tweak and tune those things. Let's move on down to the toner section. Now, toner, this is really a split tone. You've got a split tone tool built into the black and white conversion. Why? Well, a lot of black and white work in the film days was done with different chemicals. They would produce different looks. And so another convenience, you don't have to go get a split tone. You've got things right here. And there are a bunch of them. You've got different sepia tones. Selenium 3 I quite like for my landscapes, not so much for this photo. But, just hover over them. You can see what's going on. And for this one, go all the way up to the top. I kind of like what black tea is doing. And once you've selected it, you have your split tone. You have a highlight tone, you have a shadow tone, the balance between them, how much, the amounts of each one, and this button right here, preserve whites and blacks. I really like doing that with the black and whites because it adds the tone, it adds the tint, but it protects those deep blacks and those very bright whites. So you get overall a nicer blend, in my opinion, on that. And I can back off the amounts here a little bit just so I have a hint of the tinting there. The final section, film grain. This is the same as the film grain filter itself. We can choose a film style. We'll pick one. It adds an amount of grain and the size of the grain. You can, of course, control them. I'm not a particularly big fan of film grain, but it's nice that this is exactly what you get with the film grain filter. So once again, the convenience of the black and white filter is it puts it all at your fingertips. So you don't have to go jump to additional filters. You can just keep focusing on the photo and making the changes that you need. So all added up, how did we end up with this photo here? This is what I had before. This is what I had after. You know, I like it. I certainly want to continue working on it. I'd go do my rest of my processing, you know, vignetting and all that type of stuff. But that's the black and white filter. You got questions about it, go ahead and drop them below. I'll do my best to answer them. And until next time, my name is Scott Davenport. Have fun.